Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 18 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we're going to be producing nickel, which is a little more complicated than the other things. So let's get into it. So come up here and say nickel ore, and turn them into ingots. Link by the ingredient input. Let's move it around. And then turn it into molten nickel, and then into nickel plates. See, it uses very little for this, because it's just a byproduct. But now we need to calculate this carbon monoxide. So let's go back out here. Calculate the carbon monoxide, which is from reverse gas shift, which we get water and monoxide, but we need to put in the carbon dioxide, which we can get, yeah, it's from coal. I thought it was carbon. We get it from coal. And we can set this, it defaults to the advanced chemical plant, but you can also do it in the regular chemical plant, which is faster and more efficient, so you might as well do it in that one. You see, it's very little. It's 0.1 and 0.1, so these machines aren't going to be used much at all. But it's kind of important to see the chain that's happening here. So, because we need oxygen, we're going to end up having hydrogen gas. And then we're going to consume some of that hydrogen in the process of making our carbon monoxide. However, note though, and this is kind of why I did it in this order on this production tab here, is we're still going to have an excess of hydrogen. So we're still going to need to burn it off eventually. However, we're going to produce some extra purified water. And what can we do with purified water? Well, there's lots of things you use it for. Right now, not so much. But what's interesting is when you want to make when you want to do the water electrolysis, you can do it with dirty water just from a lake or whatever, and you get slag, but you can also do it with purified water. The purified one, I believe, is more efficient. Yeah, you get more for your time. But making purified water is its own process, which can kind of be annoying. But my point is that I like closed systems. As much as it can stay closed, I want it to stay closed. So since we're producing purified water, we can electrolyze it and produce hydrogen and oxygen, because we need those things. So we can say output and electrolyze it and link it by the input. And we know that we need to change the order, because see how we have an excess of oxygen and hydrogen? That kind of gives you an idea that the order is wrong, and we kind of need to move things around. So if we move this up and put the purified water electrolysis before the dirty water, it means the system will use up all of the purified water first, and then it will do the dirty water. And you can kind of see that your work is good because there's no red markers, but also there's no extra resources. The only thing we're going to have an excess is of hydrogen, and that is what we expect to have an excess of. So as far as ratio, the electrolyzer for clean water is just 1. It's barely going to get used, and it's barely going to get used. So most of this stuff isn't really going to see much of a use. So here is another cheaty application of our loaders, but it's one of those situations where it's actually quite good. I should say convenient. Because we can load directly into a building. So we can put this here, Then put all of that nickel there and it will get all sucked up. And then we can get rid of it once we've used up all the nickel. It's kind of going to be a little bit of a mess here. But that's okay. It's not very space efficient, but let's just put it out here. Okay, we want to disconnect that because we want to use another valve. Top-up valve. So only when it is low on oxygen do we want to produce more. Because otherwise we would want to produce it using the purified water if possible. So we'll put that there. And it will only fill it up until 80%, leaving space for this to electrolyze the rest of it. It's a little messy, but I don't really care about how good this looks because it's such a low throughput setup that it's really not important. As long as it's functional, that's all we need. So there we go, we're producing the nickel. And that is running as required. This is electrolyzing the water, and putting it back into the system. Although it only worked to a point until we fill up on oxygen. So we probably want to have some tanks in here to avoid having the system clog up. See, like it's kind of clogging up right now because it can't run anymore because the oxygen is full. So let's put this big old tank in here. Although it probably won't matter because this is just going to fill it up to the top. So instead, let's put the tank on for the things that can clog up. Such as purified water. So we will need to use, to keep that system going, we will need to use some of this lead. But that's kind of how this works, is that everything is interconnected. Okay, let's make some nickel here. It's gonna look kind of weird, but we can just come up here and put it on the side there. It doesn't need to be a full setup like this. It's not gonna have the output for it. But to make it look symmetrical with everything else, why not? Although it looks like we have like throughput problems with this, but it's just because it's a byproduct and we have a whole bunch of it on hand. Once we use it all up, that won't be a problem anymore, and this will run rather slow compared to everything else. Oops. We need coal, but this is actually for fuel, not for coal, so we're gonna need to send... Like, it's working now, but it'll only work for a time. And we actually need to belt coal down specifically for that. Alright, that's set up. Let's test production of nickel. Seems to work just fine. So now we need to actually use that up and produce some magazines with it. So here's what it would be. Nickel and bronze, and then a firearms magazine. Now we could just use iron, but we're kind of low on that. So instead, we can dump some copper into it. And it would also be lead, and dumping lead into it would also create more nickel. So that will help it go farther. Let's see how many we would need to fully use up our nickel production. So we have 1.5. We will require 2. And 1 machine for that. So 1 machine into 2. Then output, and I am more than happy to let it completely fill up because we are using up byproducts. So the piercing rounds are substantially better than the copper ones. It does 8 damage and 2 pierce instead of 4 damage and 1 pierce, so it lets you actually fight against the biters. Might as well do the repair packs, not that we need a bunch of them, but we'll just research it anyway. And we'll let that slowly grind through that nickel. It will be completely gone at some point. This is kind of clogged a bit. Actually, if these were both on the same belt, it probably wouldn't be as much of a problem. It's actually probably clogging because of this system here isn't letting it pick up from the belt, but very shortly that will no longer be a problem. Oh, look at this. We're actually out of copper. Wow. Well, what that means is we need to have another input for this. We kind of need a circuit network for it. Let me think and see if I can find a way to do it without a circuit network. Basically, we need to run both stereotyte and sapphirite at the same time, but only have them the side run that we need. So if we're low on iron, sapphirite runs. If we're low on copper, stereotyte runs. This would be very easy with the circuit network, but without it, I have to think for a second to figure out how to do it. Alright, I think I've found a way to do it, and I've created these little boxes here just to kind of show you what I mean. But so on this side, this will be our production of sapphirite. So we're going to have iron and copper coming from both sides. But with sapphirite, the iron will come down this side. This is just an example. And the copper will come in here. These silos will be the byproduct, so they will have no limit because the purpose of them is just to absorb byproduct. And then they will come through a priority splitter where the priority will be given to the byproduct. So the byproduct will be consumed until it runs out, and then when it does, the primary product will run through. And it's inverted for stereotyte. Fingers crossed, I think this will work. It should, but let's give it a shot. I'm not going to put the stereotyte here as far as the crushing and sorting and all of that. Either the sapphirite or the stereotyte's going to run. I don't think both of them are going to run at the same time because we don't have the smelting capacity to keep up with it. So they're going to kind of alternate between one and the other. So it should balance out to be even. The advantage of it being the opposite of sapphirite is I don't think we actually need to change anything here. We just leave all this set up as it is, and it should still work. Oh man, we're running out of miners. And down to 50% of sapphirite. Alright. Stereotyte is set up. And there's some overlap with the coal here. This side is okay, but this side had the stereotyte and the coal mixed up, and I was kind of picking them up. Well, here, I'm just allowing them both to go on the same belt. But then they will be filtered off and then go through all of this. So let's block that off here. And let's fire it up and see if it works. But we should have a nice mixed belt of random stuff. Since I don't want to put 2 belts down, I can just use the one faster belt. And now time for the moment of truth. Does it work properly where it'll be one or the other working? or is going to work improperly where they both run at full speed all the time, which is not what I want. Well, good news. Sapphirite stopped because it's clogged here. And now these are the byproducts from stereotype. And it's running because it needs to catch up. And when it does, hopefully they both stop running. So what kind of resources have we found? Alluvium, oil, adamantite. Oh, there's sapphirite. That's kind of way out of the way, but it's there. Okay, so we have some options, and I'm new to all of those Mad Clown ores on all of this stuff, so I'd have to review it. Honestly, doing any of it without a circuit network would be kind of annoying. Because when you have angels, you really only want to do certain processing types when you want to do them. You don't want to do them all the time because it's going to get real complicated and you're going to want a circuit network for that. We don't have that much left to research as far as the circuit network goes. Yeah, we're just locked behind green science, basically. And rubber. So green science would be easy enough to do. Oh yeah, there is this tier 2 lab we can do. I might actually avoid doing that for now to save resources. So we could immediately start on tier 2 science, and it's not that particularly difficult. We might as well do the research. So I guess we do have to research that. But it requires basic circuit boards and tin, and then some lead, iron, other random stuff. But you can see how this is already starting to become quite a mess. And whenever that happens with Angel Bobs, whenever you're like, all right, this is becoming a mess, you want to stop it from becoming a mess. You need to change something up. And it's fine for things to become a mess because they do. Eventually you run out of space and you need to expand. But we don't want to just keep committing to this, because the longer we commit to this, the more time it's going to take to undo it. Wow, that was fast for those researches. So how do we undo this? It's like, well, all this stuff needs to be moved around into a more logical place. Fast for you, slow for me. But the first step basically is to move this bus somewhere else. And I was thinking somewhere around there. Water here, so having it go straight up would be kind of nice. We'll have to do some biter killing. And sooner or later we'll need to start building walls and whatever. But I was thinking the bus can go up here. So then we need to work backwards. Well, what goes into the bus? Well, all of these materials right here. Those, they might be able to stay, but I'd want them all to be in the same spot. So if they can't be here, they would be somewhere else. Like down here, where ingots go in, plates go out. And then we would need to do the ore processing. The ore processing might be able to stay where it is. Because it makes the most sense to do it in close proximity to the things that need it. But this stuff isn't too clogged right now. All of these things, they're okay. What's mainly clogged is this part with all of that. So we'll just have to play it by ear and move things around until it looks efficient. But that'll be it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.